Well, it was just like any other funeral to begin with. Just the usual bog standard funeral. When I say usual, as usual it gets within the gangster community. There were a few genuine mourners, a few hangers-on, a few thinking, God, I don't want to be here, but if I didn't come it would be noted type mourners. And of course the dead guy was there, or the bits he'd recovered. Not his hands or his head. All the most feared hard men sit at the front. At least that's what my mother told me when I asked when I was little, to say. I was stuck at the back with Sticky Fingers McGee, Gyro Jake, and Have You Got a Like Hugo. So called because he was a failed arsonist. Oh, the gangster humour. You've got to love it. Although, I don't know why he was called Hugo, because his name was Jake. But I suppose they couldn't have two Jakes. Although in actual fact, everyone in the funeral party were Jakes if you want my opinion. I was at the back, not because I didn't have any potential or had no connections, but because I was young. An apprentice hoodlum. I was training to be a lawyer. My mother wants me to be a gangster's wife. I would be expected later in the proceedings to dispense the teas and coffees, while the mothers eyed me for their sons and the fathers just eyed me. That is how it worked. I would be seen as a prize, daughter of a well-known gangster. I was sent to private school, where the fees could pay a mortgage, and all the girls were called Prue, Portia, or Prunella. I was first generation nouveau riche, so I didn't really fit in. All the others were third generation nouveau riche, whose parents didn't know how to order a pizza. They were all very beautiful and used expressions like, I digress. When I used this phrase in my mother, what she said was, I didn't send you to that school so you become one of the new age hippies and digress. You can take the women out of the East End, as they say. Anyway, I digress. In walks Tracy Evans, mistress of the dearly departed. You know the type. The IQ of a slug, who even within the slug community is the dumbest slug in the allotment. Boobs that wouldn't sag if she were doing a handstand. And don't get me started on the lips. Everyone stopped talking as she walked past each pew, each row falling silent until all was quiet. Where is she going to sit? I asked myself. Everyone knows that mistresses sit at the back with the youngsters and the minor criminal types. No way. She isn't. Is she going to sit next to... No, wait a minute. And while she was making up her mind, Archie No Way McIver stood up, took Tracy's arm, and led her away from the grieving wife. McIver ended every sentence with, no way, so no prizes for guessing where he got his name. Archie's wife, friend of the deceased and the grieving widow, was unable to contain herself any longer. Tracy Evans' display of disrespect towards the gangster wife's hierarchy made Agnes's blood boil, and she broke her silence by shouting, "Slag!" All heads turned to Tracy Evans. She looked around to see who she was talking about. Finally, the penny dropped, and Tracy Evans stands up, slowly and gracefully. "Are you talking to me, Agnes?" All heads turned to Agnes. "Aye." All heads turned to Tracy Evans. "How disappointing. I had asked you, Archie, to be discreet. But I suppose once you've been with me, you'd want to shout it for the rooftops," she said in a breathy, husky voice. Not your everyday Govan accent, I thought. Tracy's words rolled off her tongue like ice cream melting in the sun. My mother, who was in the second row, stands up. "Ho, Prunella! What's she fae? Them hens? Is she one of the third generation rich people whose dads couldn't order in charge of without an instruction manual?" Everyone was looking at me. I stood up, red-faced, and said, "No, Mummy, I wouldn't think so. Not with a name like Tracy." Her eyes flash with pride. She straightens her jacket, sticks out her chin, and nods to the people gathered. And then, like an autumn leaf, drifts slowly down to her seat, secure in the knowledge that the money paid for my education was not a waste. She sits completely satisfied with my answer. By this time, Agnes had processed what Tracy had actually said. "Match!" exclaimed Agnes. "You lying bitch!" Her voice broke, and in gangster land, that's when your enemy goes in for the kill. And Tracy Evans did not disappoint. "Oh, you thought I was screwing Betty's man? God rest his soul." She blessed herself, and out of habit, everyone in the congregation did the same. And then she leaned forward. "Let's just say that Archie No Way McIver should change his name to Archie Anytime, Anywhere, Anyway McIver," Tracy purred. I stared wide-eyed and open-mouthed. My first thought was that she was a special kind of stupid. And my second thought was that Tracy could actually string a sentence together, and I felt impressed. Agnes sprung to her feet and pounced with the prowess of an alley cat. Archie stood up and tried to grab Agnes, but every fibre in her being was prepared for a fight, and she easily escaped his grasp. By this time, the priest walked in shouting, "People, my good people, show some decorum!" But no one blinked an eye. Now, the two warring factions, Agnes and Tracy Evans, had managed to scratch and bite their way from opposite ends of the pew, leaving behind them a trail of dishevelled mourners. Amongst this chaos, the undertaker and a policeman walked in. The undertaker slid sheepishly towards the grieving widow and whispered in her ear. The widow could be heard shouting, "What? You're joking?" And as before, when Tracy Evans walked in, the gangsters, their malls, the "I don't want to be here" people, the hangers-on, and the genuine mourners all fell silent. Sticky Fingers McGee shouted up from the back, "What's up, hen?" Thank God he did, because I was on the edge of my seat. And me being lower in the pecking order, I daren't ask. The widow looked outraged and replied, "The funeral's off." "How come?" shouts Sticky Fingers McGee. "The funny's Hans, and I don't want to bury him in instalments, so I'm going to wait till they find his heat." All went silent, and then Sticky Fingers shouts, "Oh, fair dues, hen," he said. "Fair dues."